Hello everyone, my name is Utkarsh Singh and I am currently based in Dubai, UAE. I am working as a BIM coordinator at HBA and my topic for presentation today is realizing the gaps between project knowledge and digital information. Before starting my presentation, I would like to thank BIM Coordinators Summit for hosting this event and creating a wonderful platform and especially giving me this opportunity to present my insights and experiences in the BIM industry so far. A little introduction about myself. So I have worked in the BIM industry for about more than 7 years and specialized in the delivery of BIM projects related to interior fit out and joinery contracting projects. I started my career as a BIM architect in India in a company called Texture, which is a BIM consultant based in India, where I learned the basics of BIM, and I had the opportunity to work in multidisciplinary projects, which included architecture, infrastructure, MEP structure, and I had also learned about how to work in 4D, 5D construction sequencing, and I had experiences with BIM training. From then, I moved on to join Abenos, which is a major fit out contractor in Dubai, UAE. I was appointed as the BIM coordinator to handle and deliver a mega residential project in Dubai downtown. So I handled the project delivery from the IFC to the handover stage. Currently, I am working at HBA Dubai in luxury hospitality design, where I'm learning and analyzing how to implement BIM in the starting processes in the design process of the project. So, moving on with my presentation, I would like to first give a basic introduction, which is the lay down the definition of the two most important topics of my presentation, which is project knowledge and digital information. So, what do we define as project knowledge? Project knowledge is the data that is gathered and generated specific to a project, and in most cases, it is customized and applied to satisfy the specific standards and the desired output of the project that is laid down by the clients or owners throughout the project timeline. And the second part, what do we define as digital information? So, digital information in terms of BIM is the data that is generated in the project that includes all the communications, the models, the drawings, the documents, the discussions that is recorded electronically during the project. It is basically all the BIM data, the BIM information that is created and gathered from all the consultants, all the stakeholders during the project process. So, giving a brief background that why I chose this topic, I would like to talk about the diplomacy of BIM. Why I chose this phrase specifically is that whenever we are part of the construction project, so we see that there is a very small part of the members or the departments that have idea about how BIM works, like the BIM department itself, the BIM managers and engineers and architects. But there is a big major chunk of the construction process, which is a lot of the team members, they don't understand how BIM actually works. So there is a difference and a divided opinion where how BIM is perceived and what BIM actually is. So what BIM is perceived by those team members is that BIM is probably a software or replacement of a conventional AutoCAD, and it is, and in most organizations and regions and projects, BIM is treated as just an advanced version of the department where the conventional drafting process took place. And in most cases, the BIM protocol or the BEP, the execution plan, is laid down by the client or the owner, where the BIM managers might not have idea about how BIM works in each and every discipline that is involved during the project process. And on the other hand, what BIM actually is that it's not just another form of documentation tool or a drafting process, but it is actually a knowledge or information that is involved in each and every stage of the project, and each and every department of the project should use BIM as a process. And instead of having like just the client and owner laying down the BIM protocol, each and every BIM department, each and every consultant during the process should have their own defined execution plan that is curated based on how their organization works and how their desired output can be achieved. So what you see on my screen is that there's a small diagram where I've tried to show that how the information is transferred from the design phase to the BIM models. So it might be from sketches, visuals, markups, and LOD 200 very basic models, where the design is transformed into the actual BIM data that is then passed on to the construction process and the main contractor, where we have seen that after we try to generate the data from BIM, it is divided into two processes. The conventional 2D drawings, which is used by the construction managers and the site team to actually execute the construction. And there is the digital information, which is the BIM model itself, which might be used for as built or facility management or the operation part of the process. So what we see that when it's divided into two processes, a lot of the information is duplicated and a lot of information is lost in this process. So from BIM, when we generate 2D drawings, it's nothing different from the conventional way of generating a CAD drawing. And a lot of the problems that is solved on the construction site is spontaneous, and it is still based on the 2D drawings. It's not based on the models. And there is again the model that is being used by the operation team or the facility management team, and there might be differences in this data. It might not be the same data exactly, so the desired output that we wanted to achieve has failed here in this process. Moving on. So what we see on the current construction projects that involve the BIM process is that there is a major information loss, which might be known by the BIM managers and the BIM departments, but in the whole process, it's being lost on each and every stage, which creates a divide between the actual product that we get at the end of the process and the digital information that is created. One major reason that we discussed earlier is because of the differences in understanding of the BIM amongst the professionals that are involved in the project. Another major reason is because the BIM process tends to start from scratch at each and every stage of the project. So what we see that a design team that creates an LOD 200 or 300 model in the design phase might not be completely used by the new team that replaces the BIM team in the construction process. They might have a difference in opinion, they might have a difference in execution plan, and a lot of the data that is created by the design professionals might not be used for construction because it might not be built in that way. The model might not be built in the way where you can add a lot of information. So what we are seeing that the BIM process is like scraped away at every new stage of the project, and a lot of the information that is created before is useless, and this is what is creating the major gap between the product and the digital information. And because of the differences in opinion and the legibility and interpretation of the digital information that might not be available for each and every member. For example, most of the construction managers who might not know how to use a BIM model or navigate through a BIM model, we tend to create 2D drawings for them, which is again like an alternate documentation from a BIM model. And the limited information that those 2D drawings have is like a significant drawback in the information, which cannot be directly used by the downstream applications for any kind of analysis, calculation, simulation. And a lot of the data is like re-entered manually, and a lot of the solutions are spontaneous on the site. So in the divide on the early stages of the project, so when we see a divide on the very early stage, and it will only keep on increasing at the later stages. So it is very important to close this gap during the process. Otherwise, we'll always have a product which is different from the digital information that is created, and the whole idea that we are trying to achieve the digital twin will be lost in the whole process. And this brings us to the question, that is construction really an industry? So, what we see in other industries, for example, the automobile industry or the electronics industry, that there is enough repetition in the whole process that helps the companies or organizations to automate the whole process so that they can achieve a uniform product every time. There is enough quality management during the process that helps to reduce the total cost and increase the efficiency and productivity. There is enough process management that reduces any scope of error, and that might reduce the total cost that you have to spend on the quality control. And there is enough usable data which in today's world can be analyzed, and through AI or through any other tool that can be analyzed to help the professionals make an informed decision. But on the other end, what we see on the contrast in the construction industry, that there is no repetition in the whole process. Each and every project is different from the last one, and there is not enough quality management during the process because in each and every phase or each and every stage of the project, the how the documentation is done changes, and the clients and owners tend to rely on the individual consultants to hold up their end of the bargain and then produce the BIM product according to the protocol, which might not happen, and there is no particular way to check that. And a lot of data cannot be interpreted by the building operations team or the construction team, that is generated during the digital process, and which might increase the cost and the time and the efforts that has to be taken by those parts of the construction process which do not understand BIM. So now that we have identified the problem, there is the need of actually finding that what is the cause of this problem, and that is where the major dilemma is during the BIM process. What I've shown here with the help of the McLeamy curve, like how in the conventional process, which was before BIM, we intended to focus more and invest our resources and time more during the detailed design and the construction process. And how BIM helps is just to move that process a little bit earlier, where we can actually solve the issues in a less costly and a less time taking manner. So the conventional process before BIM shows more effort directed during the much later process, and BIM process shows moving the planning effort a little bit earlier. But the dilemma between this thing is that we are just moving the same effort a little bit earlier. So the problems that we are going to face anyways later, we'll be facing earlier, which might reduce the cost or the time to solve those issues, but it's not removing those issues once and for all. And there's a very famous quote by Thorsten Dirk, who is the CEO of Telefonica, that when you digitalize a shitty process, what you get is a shitty digitalized process. So we don't need to just move that process a little bit earlier. What we need to do is understand that what comes under those bumps or those curves that you see here, and then to redefine it in a way that can eliminate the whole issue, not just like help us to resolve the issue earlier. What I wanted to show here is a case study from one of my previous projects, which was a fit out and joinery project. What you see here is a BIM model that we have created during the whole process, which is an LOD 500 BIM model, and you can see in the images below that how the BIM model is coordinated between the MEP, the fit out, and the architecture and all the disciplines. So this is an example of a well-coordinated as-built model from the project, and the joinery contractor deployed huge amount of resources and time to comply with the BIM protocols that was laid down by the lead contractor, which was an architecture and structure contractor. And BIM for interiors is like still far away from reality. What we see that the software which is widely used, for example Revit or any other softwares, are not built for the interior BIM modeling, and which comprises of the broken processes ultimately, which does not help to achieve the product. and the end process of the fabrication, which is like after BIM, is like scraps away all the digital data that has been created during the BIM process. So if any one of you have worked on a joinery project, mega residential projects that involves joinery, we see that the factory that is fabricating those joinery elements have no way to use the BIM data and convert it to their benefit. Like they cannot use the BIM data for quantifying the scheduling the materials, and they have no way to actually put the whole file of the BIM model to factory or to fabrication. And unfortunately, like there is a need of again employing and deploying alternative methods, using AutoCAD drawings and then converting it into like file formats that can be used with for the CNC machines to actually fabricate the joinery elements. And the QSs, the quantity team, the procurement team has to devise their own ways, which was the conventional ways, and cannot use these BIM models to help them. So they are still using the conventional ways of calculating their materials, procuring the materials, and for fabrication. So the point that I have understood from this problem is that it is not the process problem, that the problem is not BIM itself. It is a content problem and how we interpret BIM for the other disciplines, not the major disciplines on the project, but there are many disciplines involved in the project that cannot use the same BIM process to arrive at the desired output, what they want. What we see here is that the models that are created on SketchUp or on any other platform for marketing by the designers and mixed up with the product specification are then input into Revit, which is taken from concept, design, and coordination stage. And what we do is we just take out the PDF and CAD drawings that is used by the construction team, that is used by the actual engineering team to review and for changes, and which is again like creates a difference between the actual BIM model and what is going to be constructed. And when the whole BIM model is ready, coordinated with all the services, and is ready for implementation, then it might be used for some trades, for example, architecture, structure, or MEP, facade, which are the major trades. But there is other trades, for example, the kitchen consultant or the interior design consultant, the fit out contractor, which might not be able to use the BIM model to the same extent in which it is intended. So in this particular process in my project, what we did is we used the production model, which was the Revit model, converted it into 2D drawings. Then we had to deploy a whole new drafting team to convert that CAD drawings into CAD plus T, which we are using for our calculations, and for which is actually a file to factory tool to convert the drawings that can be sent out to the joinery factory and to the CNC machines, and then take out the Excel data for calculating, for quantity surveying, for procurement, and then ultimately going to the CNC machines. And then it is still done in a way in which it was done in the conventional times, like tens of years ago. And the BIM process does not solve the actual issue in this particular problem. So a big part of the problem is that the BIM execution plans or the design management plan that is laid down by the lead consultant or by the main contractor might not work for each and every discipline on the project, because the lead consultant or the client or the owner BIM department might not have the BIM professionals who have experience from all the different industries. And in most cases, what we tend to do is just to suffice the BIM protocol, to just suffice the execution plan, but not actually solve the issues on in their own processes and in their own organizations. Some possible solutions that I have observed and summarized from my experiences, like collaboration. So collaboration, when we talk about in the BIM sense, there is collaboration between BIM departments of each and every organization. which is actually causing the rest of the members of each team to just neglect what is going on in BIM and to leave all the issues with the BIM managers and the BIM coordinators. But actually, it should be that each and every team, each and every member should know a basic understanding of how BIM processes work. And then we come to software, which I explained in my previous slide, is that we are just using a few vendor specific softwares which can be used by the client or the owner or by the operations team. But it's not solving the actual issue for each and every discipline. So we need to use like a different variety of softwares and a full like suite of software that can be used in a organization specific way or in a discipline specific way, and then to bring all of them together in a way that can be federated and coordinated to solve issues on site. And ultimately the file format, so a huge amount of work in design consultancies and contractors are varied, and they do not leverage the actual power of IFC. So like BIM modeling and documentation is considered as just one part of the project, which should actually be considered as like part of each and every process. What I've taken here is from the Libish et al. Graph, which explain how open BIM, closed BIM, little BIM, and big BIM works. So there's a very small definition about open BIM is like the software solutions from various manufacturers, open and standardized data models. And what closed BIM means that software solution from one manufacturer, proprietary and closed data models, which we are actually using on most of the BIM projects. And then there is little BIM, which is the isolated solutions within one office, one planning discipline, and one software solution. And then what we have opposite of that is the big BIM, where it is an end-to-end use of digital building models across different disciplines and life cycle phases. So, despite much progress in the recent years, like BIM data exchange does not work properly or perfectly, which causes the data loss and misinterpretation at various different stages. And this use of different processes, different softwares, which is specific to the discipline, which is specific to the organization, and then bringing it all together under one roof might actually help to resolve issues for each and every like aspect and phase of the construction process. So that was my topic, and I hope like I've given you to something to think about. And thanks.